Chicken. This is how I do it, not necessarily how.
Help?
No, I got it.
Okay.
Oh yeah. This is just how I do it. So it's going to end up with a carcass and all the parts parted out. So I usually start at the drumstick, and then what I'm going to do is separate the thigh from the body, and just kind of cut into it like that. So you see the skin separates from the body pretty well. And then I'm going to lay it over like this and just follow this muscle up and around as I cut. So it's going to go, I lay the blade against the back of the bird, so I just get right there. And then as you cut, you kind of pop it out. So what I'm doing here is getting all the muscle that's still right there, so I don't leave any on the carcass. And then it's a ball joint, so it'll just pop like that. And then on the same thing, I'm going to follow with the hilt of the knife all the way down here as I cut to make sure I get all that meat up against the side. There we go, and then it just comes right off. See how we are right there? So there's our thigh. And thigh. And I do the same thing with the other side. Flip it over. Usually get my knife in there, cut the skin. And I like to leave the skin on it because it gives you options for continuing to work with them later. And then same thing here, you're just gonna follow that ridge of muscle all the way around. So kind of like that, and then at some point you flip them over, pop that ball joint, there it goes. And then same thing, just work your way down along that seam, getting as much of the muscle as you can. There you go. Okay, there we are. There's both the drumsticks. If you want to part them out from here too, you can kind of see a seam right there. So you just follow that with your knife and you'll get another ball joint. And if you do it right like that, you just go right through the joint and it pops off pretty clean. So then if you want, then you've got your drumstick parted out from your thigh. And if you want to fillet it further, sometimes I like doing this. Even with this big knife, you can do it. I just sort of cut to get to the bone right there. And then I just kind of unroll it with my knife and kind of push and roll like that, and you kind of just get behind the bone, slowly roll. You leave a little bit of meat on there, but it's not bad. And you do want to be careful, especially if it's cold and you can't feel your fingers. This guy's warm. So there we go. See that? You just kind of unroll it from the bone. And then at some point, you can do one of those. There you go. So you got a filleted thigh, your bone, which is great for stock or throw to your dog, and we'll move on. From here, there are these great little, they call them the oysters on the chicken, these back muscles. So I usually take off the wings in order to get the back muscles too. So I usually start under the breast, under the armpit, and you're kind of cutting down on top of it because you want to leave as much of your breast intact as you can. And then again, through the ball joint. And once I free it up here, what I'm basically going to do is just peel it off like that with my knife. So my knife is going to follow the underlying rib cage back, over the back. And you can kind of see as I cut up, if you do it right, you'll unearth the scapula right there underneath. See, there it is. And you get that beautiful little pearl of meat that comes off too. Otherwise it would be left on the carcass. And the same thing here, you go through the ball joint. I find there's a little bit of an angle to go through this ball joint, slightly out. It goes through that ball joint pretty easily. So now you've got your wing, number one, and then separate this. I don't have a cutting board, so I don't want to hit through it too hard. There we go. Thank you, Shega. Wing number two, and your tip. Again, you can throw those to the dogs. Dogs can eat raw chicken bone, they just can't eat cooked. And so you can throw as much as you want to the dog, as long as it's raw. But once it's cooked, it'll splinter and break and possibly kill them, so don't ever feed them cooked bones. But raw is okay. So again, here I'm just freeing it up, so I'm gonna unpeel it along the scapula and take off that little oyster. There we go, yep, so there's the scapula. And the same thing, down sort of towards the front, through the ball joint. Kind of hard to cut without a board. There it is. Yeah, you'll know, you don't ever have to push too hard with these guys. It's mostly you're going through these joints, and if you go through it at the right angle, it goes pretty clean. If you're cutting too hard or too much, you know you kind of got it wrong. Let's see, there we go. And next to the breasts. All right, I'm gonna leave those, no cutting board. So you see here, we've got the back freed up. We got as much meat off as we could from around the thighs. And we got all the meat off of the scapula here. So now to the breasts. I usually start with the right breast. Same deal, basically what you're gonna do is you're gonna cut down until you hit the breastbone. And then for me, I'm gonna unpack it. There's a line right there where the breast connects to the frame. So what I'm gonna do is cut along until I hit that. And you'll hit the wishbone down here. Now I don't recommend this necessarily, but I do it. So I'm just gonna tap at the hilt of the knife to break through the wishbone, so it's not a problem. And then I'm gonna follow the seam to unpack the breast fillet. And then if you do it right, you just follow the rib cage all the way up. You get as much meat as you can. Eventually you're gonna cut into cartilage, so there we go. Right, yep. And then you just follow it all up. And I'm kind of just folding it out as I go with the knife like that. So there's not a lot of trans meat cutting. It's mostly following the groove of the muscle itself as it lays on the bone. And then eventually you get it up here. And honestly, I just do it like this. Kind of like that. The knife could use a sharpening. There we go. Little kid like screaming. Okay, there we go. Gosh darn it. Alright, we'll just go skinless for this guy then. There we go. So here's our breast. So this is the whole breast. And if you look at it, it's actually got the tender. Most people know the breast tender is right there. So it's actually like it's like the underlaying part of the fillet itself is the tender. So there's your boneless breast with the tender. And you can see here we have left, we cleaned it out pretty well from the whole cavity. There's the wishbone. So now I'll do the other side. I'm just gonna cut around the skin, I think, so I don't have to deal with the skin. There we go. Again, you're following this seam, basically just unpacking the muscle from, it's upside down, let's do it that way. Following, just unpacking the muscle from the carcass.
More pressure.
And as you go, you see I'm just kind of pulling with my fingers while my knife runs down and just separates all the muscle. I'm going to hit my wishbone again, so I'm going to give it a crack at the butt. Just kind of bust through it. There we go. And then I'm just kind of angling the knife out as I go down so it frees up the muscle from the frame. And eventually you get the midline. There we are. Okay. And then we're going to cut. There we go. So we got a wishbone in there, but you can cut that guy out. There's our tender. There's the other breast. And then here's our frame that's left, and with our organs as well. If you want, you can toss these into a bag, make stock with them. My favorite meat of the whole chicken, believe it or not, once you've made stock, is on the neck. I think it's the tastiest meat on the whole bird. So from here, you know, an onion, a couple carrots, some celery, clove or two of garlic, some bay leaf, salt, pepper. Makes the best stock you ever had. Just don't put the liver in there with it. And then, yeah, do whatever you like from there.